We're at Chuck's Frankentree. We started this project, what is it, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
So it was grafted in the spring, and this has gone through its third year of regrowth from the grafts. Is that correct? That's right.
I believe so.
3 years, yeah. So each one of these will be a different branch with a different fruit on it, a different variety of apple, and of course we can add more. We could start adding more right now. But it's done really well. We had a few problems, but mostly they're our fault. So today we're gonna do what we did last year, just kind of take a look at it and maybe do some pruning. Some people will say it's a bad time to prune. It's basically end of November, and a lot of people will wait until closer to spring so the cuts aren't exposed to the weather and stuff all winter, but I don't think it matters that much. I've never noticed it to matter that much, and I just do it anyway. Just so it gets done, and because we're here and we have a camera, we're just gonna do it right now. I'm gonna show you kind of how I'm gonna prune it, but also how the tree has been growing back and what happens when I make the different cuts that I make. Here's a spreader right here. This was used to take this from having a high angle like that and pull it down like this. And if we take that off, it's basically done. So here's a shoot that grew up, and I cut it off here. What happened is the first 3 buds, 1, 2, 3, the very first 3 buds grew out into these long vegetative shoots. Since this shoot is pointing up, it grows fast. So anything that is already pointing up tends to grow fast. It's called apical dominance, apical meaning the top. And as that grows, it will send hormones down that tell this to keep growing and to suppress side growth. Now, when I cut this off, the other thing that happened is these 2 things grew into these short little spurs, and eventually those will start producing fruit. This next year I'm not quite sure, but maybe. So I don't want this. You know, we don't want these tall shoots growing straight up through the tree. They're interfering with the other growth. They're, all gangly and weird. So we're gonna take this one completely out, down to this, and then these 2, we're gonna do the same thing and shorten those. And I'm gonna pick a bud that goes in an advantageous direction. Like, let's say here, this bud points off that way. This bud here points off this way. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buds. This little one down here may not grow though, so it's probably going to grow 1 or 2 of these will grow, and then this one and this one might turn into like a spot where fruit grows. And that will have to be repeated every year because this is going to keep growing back. If this was off the side a little bit, it would do that a little bit less. So keeping these upright shoots, they just need maintenance, but they're fine. This will turn into a thing that just bears a lot of fruit. I'm starting to look at this as a main branch, and I'm thinking, okay, what do I want from this? We're going to leave this because it's already on its way to making fruit, and we want to get fruit soon. We could always cut this off later, but this is good. This one grew off. The original scion that was grafted was about this long, and this grew off, and I cut it way out here because I knew I was going to want to keep this as a long side branch. What I don't want necessarily is this interfering with these guys, so I'm going to shorten that. In fact, I'm just going to take that out because it's weak growth. I'm going to take this out because it's weak growth, and I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to shorten this to an out-facing bud that faces that way, so that this will grow out, kind of keep going like that, instead of growing it to, if I cut it to an inside bud, like say right here, now it's going to grow in like this, and I don't want that. So there we go. And if we just kind of keep shortening this back, it'll make it thicker, stouter, stronger. It won't just keep going like this and then eventually, droop way down. This one I'm going to shorten. This is interfering with this. If I want another branch like this, which I do, it's going to be this one. Okay, I've got 1 foot here, and then maybe 1 foot to the next one. So I definitely want, see what I'm thinking here? I've got a main scaffold. This is what you'd call a scaffold here. And then off the side I have these lateral fruiting things. And I want, one about every feet. So on one side they'll be approximately 2 feet apart. So say this one, and then maybe this or this here. And this is perfect right here. So I want this one. So I'm going to leave that long. And I'm just going to encourage it by snipping it here. We'll encourage it to grow a couple of these into shoots. In fact, I'm going to come back a little bit further. That's further than I want, but it's so wimpy that I just want to encourage this to grow more. These are actually growing better. I kind of wonder if I shouldn't keep this one instead. Now this isn't the ideal spacing. This one I'll just take out, but it is much stronger growth. So it doesn't really matter. It's like 10 inches versus 13 inches or something like that. And in this case, this one I'll just shorten. It'll probably get removed later, but it might make some fruit in the next few years. In this one, we're going to leave as a possible. You don't have to make every decision now, so leave ways out for yourself. And that's looking pretty good, right? This one we also don't need, so I'm just going to also shorten that one. Again, that'll grow a couple shoots and then maybe some fruit here. And I wouldn't mind seeing this one propped up to about that angle because it's already low, and when it starts to fruit, it's going to end up like this. So we can take this one and actually tie it back to the tree with a little strap, like a flat band of something, and it'll grow into itself like this.
What about a prop to push it up?
Yeah, that's okay too. But if you tie it, it's like completely out of your way. So that's about what I do with that branch. This one's fine too, but we don't want it growing all out. This is going to be more like fruit wood, right? Not weight-bearing wood. So we can cut that pretty short too. Okay, let's give the similar treatment to this. Again, we don't want this stuff growing way up into the middle of the tree, and we can just remove one of those shoots, shorten the other one way back. Eventually this will probably get removed. In fact, I don't like it, so it's coming up now. This I don't like, no reason to leave that at all. This has already started to form some buds that might produce fruit, so we'll shorten that, but leave it. In fact, I'm going to take this one and shorten it back even further to that little fruit bud right there. Same here. I don't really want this to be a main side branch, so we're just going to shorten that. This we don't want growing straight up. I don't want this growing into the center of the tree at all. That comes out. This gets shortened way back. I'm going to leave this because it definitely has fruit wood all over it, and that's good. But I don't like it because it's growing straight over the top of this one. So instead of leaving it as a main side scaffold, I'd rather see the first scaffold come out over here somewhere. I'm just gonna cut it back. Again, mostly I'm cutting the outside facing buds, so the tree will keep looping out this way. And I'm going to shorten it to this end, which has a fruiting bud right here. Now if this starts to bear a bunch of fruit next year, that will discourage it from growing a lot. It'll make fruit instead of growing, and that's exactly what I want. Maple. Again, straight up, don't like that. There's a spur right here, so I'm actually going to discourage this from growing. Well, that's the plan. By cutting it right back to that. I don't want this growing up, so we're going to cut that really short as well. Again, this isn't necessarily what we want, but there's one advantage in this climate of keeping these little short upright pieces is that they shade the top of the limb, and sunburn's a huge problem here because we regularly get temperatures of like up to 110 in the summertime. And as soon as that bark gets sunburned, it gets bugs in it, just like that's what happened here and lower down in the trunk. Okay, so this one, I'll be looking at keeping this as a side branch. I could use this one, might even be better. Let's see, I'm just gonna shorten that, remove that because it's growing straight down. I don't really like that too much. And I'm gonna shorten this whole thing so it just doesn't grow super long and lanky. If I cut this to an outward facing bud, now it has to grow like this, and this will grow a little bit thicker. Again, I think I'm going to leave some of this for shade. This is an art, not a science. So there's all kinds of room for error and leeway that you're working with. I like this one better for a main side branch, so I'm going to leave it on the long side because I want to encourage it to fill this space right here with a branch. But I'm going to cut it back a little bit to an outward facing bud, and that's going to force some growth right in this area. In fact, I'm going to take it back one more. And we'll get a few shoots right here that can eventually turn into shortened shoots like these for fruiting. And I'm going to take this off so it encourages this one to grow more. This is a new shoot, and it's so weak that I'm not going to do much to it. I'm going to leave this for now, and I'm going to cut this back to a downward facing bud, because we want this to actually turn into the same as these guys here eventually. The other thing I'd like to do here is cut a big notch right above this branch and force it to grow more, because what that does theoretically is it stops resources that would travel past this and then continue up the tree, and or it stops hormonal signals from the top of the tree, which is dominant, and it's growing down. It's telling stuff down here to grow less. So if you cut above it, it kind of disrupts that and then allows us to get more resources. I think it'll grow pretty well this year. It looks like it was just kind of getting itself established for the first year there, because we weren't able to graft this the first year. And this is going to be a side branch to fill this area. This is a good next side branch to fill that area. Again, I don't want it too long and lanky, so we're going to tip it back. Is this Wixon? This looks like Wixon. Yep, it is Wixon. Oh, speaking of which, have you been eating the Wixon apples off that tree?
A few of them. Yeah.
Try that. I just chipped those off. Yeah, it's probably, this is probably like 18 to 20% sugar, right? It's incredibly sweet. I'll save the seeds, because these guys are always bugging me to save the seeds, so I'm saving seeds this year to send out. God damn, that's good.
I could start using these and save the seed.
Yeah, here, I shook some off the trees. Save the seed. Put it in a Ziploc bag in the fridge. Although I think that's actually... Okay, so what was with this one? I think this one we can just shorten up. This is Wixon, which bears super early, and it could produce fruit all along these little studs right here. And really, this might make an okay side branch. This one, not so much, so it's got a bunch of fruiting wood all in here already. So I'm just going to prune it to a downward facing fruiting bud. Hope it doesn't grow too much. But this one, I could see turning into more of a lateral fruiting thing. So I'm just going to shorten it to this right here, right now. It can always be changed later. We got 2 Lady Williams apples back here, but they won't be ripe until at least sometime in January. Okay, this is facing down, so it's going to come out. This one's growing straight over into that stuff. So just remove that and make this one here the first major side growth. I mean, this is the main branch, so this is kind of a side branch already. So I'm going to shorten this way back, and I'm going to steer it that way. Longer than it needs to be even. Short. Anyway, that's enough on that project for today. I'm just going to get a ladder and finish the top. It's pretty much the same ideas. Actually, it's not. All right, we'll do the top too. This thing's a death trap. Flexible ladder. Okay, this one I'll leave alone. I want it to leave me alone. All right, what we have up here is, this was the original scion, about this first 9 or 10 inches from here down. And like often is the case, 3 major shoots grew out of here, and they're all still here. This one I topped out right there. What we want to form is the tree kind of competing with itself at the top of the tree. This system where you have, you know, a branch in 3 or 4 different directions. So in this case we have 4. We have this main branch, 2, 3, 4, and this one was actually possibly going to come out, and this was going to replace it. But for now I'm just going to leave both. So it actually has 5, but more typically it would have 3 or 4. This is called delayed open center or modified central leader. Okay, so then it comes up. So first of all, we have all these branches here are pulling energy as it comes up the tree, pulling away resources, and that's going to limit the growth of the top of the tree, that alone. So it makes this slow down a little bit, but then we're going to create kind of like a competition with itself at the top too, by leaving these 2 and shortening all of these. So this one's getting, again, that's just annoying. So,
I'm half 10.
what? So this one has to compete with these 2 in order to grow. And if we keep, you know, several shoots up here instead of just one, that'll really help to keep control of the growth of this one here. So we want to bring this down every year so that the tree stays right about at this level. This tree doesn't ever need to grow very much taller than this, maybe a foot or so, if we just diligently shorten this off every year. Again, this is growing over here and interfering with these. It doesn't need to be long. Neither does any of this. This can all get shortened. In fact, I'm just going to take that one out. If you have a tip-bearing variety that tends to grow on tips, sometimes you'll want to keep branches about 10 inches and shorter. Things that grow real short and they might have like a big fat bud on the end, those will often produce fruit. A lot of trees will do it, but some trees basically only bear that way, and some do both, you know, where they'll bear on these little spurs and they'll bear on the tips of the shoots. So it's like spur bearers, tip bearers, and partial tip bearers. You know. That's the only caveat though about removing that kind of growth. And that one. But all this other stuff gets shortened every year. Be ruthless about that, because we don't want this to grow any higher. And what that's going to do is that any fruit wood that this forms is now going to be way down here. And then next year, after this grows and gets nipped off just a few inches, it'll grow more fruit wood in here. And it'll keep all that fruit wood really close to the down here, and you won't feel bad about trying to cut it off later. This we're leaving, but we can just shorten that once. That's pretty much it. We should expect to see significant fruit on this tree next year, if it's a good bloom season and all that. And here is really kind of the first fruit. I think there wasn't there some last year and the birds got it or something?
I don't remember it.
So this, I guess, is the first fruit. It's Lady Williams, and it grew third season. But next year I think we'll see a lot of fruit, most likely. And this won't be ripe until February 1st is kind of the ideal date up in the mountains, but this is a little lower, so maybe, mid-January.